Shalom. Welcome to Light to the Nations. We're continuing our study in Maimonides, the laws of the chosen house, the chapter that deals with details pertaining to the altar. And actually, as we are recording this program here in Jerusalem, the Temple Mount has been in the news a great deal. The Muslims have been quite upset and reacting violently to archaeological work that's being carried out by Israel outside the Temple Mount, and additionally there has been substantiated the rumor that was reported as news some time ago that the government of Jordan, the King of Jordan, is going to be financing the establishment of a fifth minaret on the Temple Mount, which will be the first expansion, the first Muslim continuation of the buildings on the Temple Mount for many, many years. And Israel is acquiescing to this, despite the fact that the Muslim leaders here in Jerusalem have declared that this is symbolic of the fact that the Jewish people have no connection whatsoever with the Temple Mount. So under these circumstances, and with this as the background, how much more so can we appreciate really how important it is that we study about the temple, that we realize that the temple is the legacy of the Jewish people and the entire world, and that the laws that have been given to us and the order of the sources and all of the details that Maimonides has recorded for us are not just another area of study which is theoretical, but is designed for us to act upon, for us to be well versed in and ready for when the time of rebuilding comes. So at a time when Jewish sovereignty, and indeed the reality of the Jewish connection to this most holy place on earth and the only holy place of the Jewish people, at a time when this is all being challenged in such a way that purports to undermine and deny the historical connection of the Jewish people to this place, I think that our redoubling of our efforts through our studying together and our understanding of the pertinence and the eternity of these commandments and how they are literally beckoning to Israel to be fulfilled, why it takes on even more significance than ever before. So let this be our answer really to these voices of doubt that seek to drive a wedge between Israel and her heart, as it were, the holy temple, the Temple Mount, the destiny of the Jewish people. And let this be really our answer, the first stage of our answer. So we are in the second chapter of Maimonides, Laws of the Chosen House, Hilchot Beit HaBechira, Perek Bet, which deals with the laws pertaining to the altar. We're up to the 11th halacha, and we are again going back to discuss the character, the structure of the foundation. So this, in a way, is a continuation of the previous halacha, which is in regard to the foundation. As we have already learned, the foundation of the altar does not go all the way around the altar on all sides, but actually only can be found on the north and west sides of the altar. And here we read in halacha entry number 11, Uvekeren maravit dromit hayu shnei nikavim kemin shnei chutmin dakin. On the southwest corner of the foundation of the yisod, there were two holes, two small holes. Now, as you can see in the illustrations of the altar and the yisod, the foundation, this southwest corner features a little protrusion of the yisod, just sticking out into the corner, because the actual yisod is not found continuing around on this side. On this protrusion, on this corner, on the south west corner, the Rambam tells us there were two small holes, Vehein hanikrain shitin, and these two holes are called shitin. This comes from an expression of the foundation, it's similar to Yisod. Remember that the foundation stone underneath the Dome of the Rock in the area of the Holy of Holies is called the Even HaShetiyah. And the root of that word, Shin Tuf, is, as our sages tell us, is called the Even Shtiyah, the foundation stone, because Mimenu Hushtat HaOlam, because from it the world was founded. So this word Shitin is an expression also of an establishment, something being established and firmed up, the foundation of something. So the Rambam is telling us that in the corner, the southwest corner of the foundation, there were two holes, themselves called shitin, an expression of foundation. Vehein hanikra'in shitin, shehadamim yordin bahen, umit'arvin ba'ota hakeren be'ama v'yotzin lenachal kidron. What was the purpose of these small holes in this corner? The remnant of the blood of some of the offerings was poured into these holes, and from there, Maimonides says, it went from there into what's called the Amma, which is kind of like a channel, a water channel, a cleansing channel that went across the courtyard of the temple. And from there, when the Amma was washed out, when this channel was rinsed every day, the remnants of the blood flowed into the Kidron Valley. Now, there is a question amongst the scholars as to exactly where this Amma, this water channel that was used to cleanse the temple, where it was situated, how it ran through the temple courtyard. There is an opinion, for example, that it was found to run to the breadth of the Azara, the courtyard, from north to south, and there are different opinions about that. I would like to point out a number of things here that have to be understood because of the terminology that we are using. The Rambam here, Maimonides, uses an expression, the shitin, which actually the same expression is used differently in the Mishnah of Masechet Midot, the tractate of Midot, the attributes of the temple, upon which much of the Rambam's own writing is based, the important source of knowledge for the structure of the Second Temple. And there, the very word shitin in the Mishnah does not refer to these small holes on the bottom of the altar, at the place of the Yisod, at the floor of the Azara. Rather, the expression in the Mishnah refers to two holes that are actually on the southwest corner of the roof of the altar, through which the libations, the water and wine libations, are poured, and they trickle down to the bottom of the altar. So one way of rectifying the apparent contradiction between Maimonides using the word referring to the holes that are found in the foundation at the bottom of the altar, and the Mishnah using the expression referring to the holes that are found in the same position on the southwest corner but at the top of the altar for the libations, one way of rectifying this is that they're essentially talking about the same system. It's obviously a drainage system, the Mishnah referring to the top and the Rambam referring to the bottom. If we look here, we can understand that we're talking about the same corner of the altar. Libations, water and wine being poured into two holes at the top on that southwest corner, and the remnants of some of the blood of the offerings being poured into the holes on the foundation, but all going towards the same place, all draining out, some into this Amma, into this water channel that ran across the Azara, and others, the remnant of other of these fluids, trickling down to the very bottom of the altar. And we're going to learn more about the significance of what that means momentarily. For now, let us go to Halacha Yud Bet. Halacha Yud Bet, the next halacha in the Rambam, tells us, Ulamata baritzpa ba'oto hakeren haya makom amma al amma v'tavla shel shayish v'tabat kfu'a ba shabo yordin lashitin u'menakin oto. The Rambam tells us that in the floor of the Azara, in that very same corner, the southwest corner, right in front of this protrusion of the Yesod, there was a space of the measurement of an amma by an amma in the floor. There was an opening in the floor of the courtyard of the temple, which was covered over by a marble tile, which had in it a ring, and by the aid of the ring, the tile could be removed, exposing a kind of passageway, a kind of small space right in the floor, southwest corner, in front of the Yesod, at the base of the altar. And upon occasion, the young Kohanim would descend through this opening and clean some of the remnants that were there from the shitin that would be building up there. Now, this is all very important for us to understand, because these shitin, whether we are talking about the holes at the top of the altar into which the libations were poured, or we are using the phrase to describe the shitin, the holes at the bottom of the altar, refers basically to the same concept. There was a system by which the libations and the blood of the offerings trickled down to the very bottom of the altar. Some of it accumulated in this space, which was opened by the aid of removing the tile, and the Kohanim would go down and cleanse it. Some of it was washed out to the Nachal Kidron, to the Kidron Valley, through the channel. But also some of it actually mingled far, far below the surface of the earth, because there was an intricate and complex system of drainage by which the shitin, the system of the foundation of the altar, actually mingled and reached the water of the depths of the earth. This is referred to as the Tehom. The expression Tehom refers to the water table, as it were, the water that is found in the very bowels of the earth. Now, there is a very amazing tradition regarding this concept, the connection between the shitin, the drainage system of the foundation of the altar, and the actual water of the Tehom, of the very bowels of the earth. And this tradition connects these concepts with none other than King David himself. And after all, it was King David who spent his entire life preparing as much as possible for the Holy Temple. It was he who purchased the spot of the temple from Aravna the Jebusite. It was he who sought after the place of the foundation stone. It was he who said that he could not rest until there was a resting place for the divine presence. It was he who said that he would not rest until the house of God was established. And in fact, it is he who is considered by the Torah as being the force behind the first temple, although he was not to actually build it, although it was to be accomplished by his son Shlomo. David is inexorably bound up and associated with the first temple. We have a teaching in the Talmud tractate Sukkah regarding actually the 15 songs of ascent that we find in the book of Psalms from 120 to 134. We have the beautiful songs of ascent. And these 15 songs of ascent correspond to, on one level of tradition, to the 15 steps leading up from the women's court to the brass gates, the Shari Nicanor, through which one would enter into the court of Israel. And In Tractate Sukkah, for example, in the Mishnah, we read about the beautiful festival of the water libation, Simchat Beit HaShoeva, that took place during Sukkot, and the Levitical choir stood upon these 15 steps and played innumerable instruments at the beautiful festivity of the water libation, about which we have already learned that our sages tell us that whoever never witnessed the festival of the water libation has never experienced true joy, and we discussed around Sukkot about how that has to do with the spirit of prophecy which was felt by the entire nation. But King David recited these 15 songs of ascent, and the Talmud in Tractate Sukkot, actually in a section which discusses in great detail many beautiful traditions about the festival of the water libation, the Talmud seeks to clarify what exactly is the history of these 15 songs of ascent, the Shir HaMa'alot. About whom did David pen them? And what is the background of these 15 songs? They're called songs of ascent. They're called Shir HaMa'alot. That means ascension. And actually, literally, the Talmud asks, regarding whom did David recite them? And the Talmud relates that it was David who actually dug out the Shittim. That it was King David himself who excavated the complex system of drainage from the place of the altar. This was something that King David had to do himself. We'll discuss why. And so he really oversaw the vast waterworks system underneath the Temple Mount. And King David, when he established the Shittim for the future altar, was concerned to see to it that the Shittim, this drainage system, the foundation, should reach all the way to the Tehom, the waters of the depths. It was important to David that these channels, these conduits, would reach all the way to the depths, so that when the libations are poured from the top of the altar, when the remnants of the blood are poured in the bottom of the Yisod, some of it accumulates in that space, covered over by the marble tablet. Some of it can be washed to the Kidron Valley, but some of it, through an elaborate system of drainage, of piping, some of it is allowed to mingle literally into the depths of the earth. And the Talmud relates a very amazing story that when King David came to actually dig out the Shittim, the Tehom, the waters of the Tehom, of the depths, jumped up and uncontrollably raged to the surface of the earth, and the world was almost deluged, almost drowned. And King David recited these 15 songs of ascent, and they receded. In other words, they backed down through the recitation of the songs of ascent. In fact, with each song, the waters receded 1,000 amah, the Talmud tells us. And then, of course, just to kind of make a long story short of the discussion here, the Talmud says, well, then they shouldn't be called Shiri Ma'alot, they shouldn't be called songs of ascent, because the water went down when he recited them. So why are they called songs of ascent? And the full story that's given is, again, to shorten it for you, it's quite complex. King David realized that something was amiss and sought to rectify the situation, and upon clarifying the issue, what was done, the holy name of Hashem was written on a piece of pottery and it was tossed into the water. And this is what caused the water to descend. In fact, the issue that David wanted to clarify was if it was permitted to do this or not, to write the name of God and have it erased, as it were, in the water, and through the power of that name for the water to descend. And the Talmud tells us that the logic that was employed was that if it is permitted to erase the holy name of Hashem in order to bring about peace between man and wife, how much more so is it permitted to erase the name of Hashem in order to bring about peace for the whole world? The reference is to the commandments regarding the suspected adulteress in Parshat Naso, in the book of Bamidbar, Numbers, the Torah reading of Naso, where when we have a suspected adulteress, she is caused to drink the bitter waters in which a name of Hashem has been erased, and that is used, as we learn there, as a determination of her innocence or guilt. So David said, certainly, then, if the waters of the Sota can be used, erasing the name of Hashem, to bring about peace between man and wife, how much more so to bring about peace for the whole world. And then the water receded to 16,000 amah, below the surface of the earth. And then David realized that the closer the waters of the Tehom are, the waters of the depth, the closer that they are to the surface, the better it is for the world, because it moistens the earth and is better for agriculture. And so he recited the 15 songs of ascent, and with each one, the waters rose by 1,000 amah, and then he left it off at the waters of the Tehom, of the depths, remaining at the level of 1,000 amah below the surface of the earth. And the Talmud explains that that's why in the end they're called songs of ascent, because in the end the water rose again through the songs of ascent. This passage in the Talmud obviously is difficult to understand at face value. How much of it is allegorical, homiletical, how much of it refers to the actual excavation that was undertaken and overseen by King David is really another matter altogether, and one needs a great deal of experience and understanding in order to grasp the beauty and the magnitude of teachings like this in the Oral Torah that have so many levels of meaning, both homiletical and simple. But I'd like to emphasize one particular insight. You know, King David spent his whole life raising from the depths, as it were, the people of Israel, and in fact himself. In fact, you know, there is a teaching that when one says the book of Psalms, one should actually find himself in the words of King David. In times of distress and in times of joy, one should find himself in King David's words, because King David, through prophecy, saw each and every one of us and included us in his words. And King David, there are so many psalms that refer to the concept of one who feels that he is strangling, one who feels that he is drowning, confounded, and King David sought to bring everyone up from the depths. And this is not only the role of the character of Mashiach, like King David, the righteous king, but it's also the role of the Holy Temple. And the reason why it's important for the remnants of the offerings and the libations to trickle down to the very center of the earth is because the Holy Temple is mechuvan, it is set opposite the very center of the earth and the center of heaven, the throne of glory. And thus it is catapulted from the level of place, of idiosyncratic place, to a place above place, a place above time and space, a place in which people can come and find their place in the world. And the human condition, the human experience is such that sometimes we find ourselves at the very bottom. We find ourselves in the very depths, and it's hard for us to extricate ourselves. And King David sought to gather up all the sparks and to unite all the souls and bring them back. And that's the experience of the Holy Temple. So he was careful in the establishment of the Shittin under the altar, that these conduits should reach the very waters of the earth, so that even the furthest away from godliness, which is all of us at times who feel far away, so that we can find our way all the way back to the center, opposite the throne of glory, because that's really the purpose of the experience of the Holy Temple, to bring us all back to center, to face the throne of glory, and to bring that home into everyday life. So even the Rambam's teaching of the drainage system in the foundation of the altar has many, many levels of meaning relating to the individual soul. And again, at a time like this, when the very sovereignty of Israel and the very existence of the Holy Temple is once again being challenged, our goal really is to reaffirm our commitment and state unequivocally and unabashedly that there really was a Holy Temple, there really is a Holy Temple, there really will be a Holy Temple. It's established in the center of the earth, opposite the throne of glory, the place of the light of the divine presence, which will once again become the light to Israel and the light to the nations.